Karen stormed down the dock, barking orders like she owned the place. Move your boat. This lake belongs to the HOA. I didn't argue. I just smiled. Because the deed in my glove box said otherwise. And once she crossed that line, I knew exactly how to sink her little fishing empire. My name's Clay Henderson. I run a cattle ranch that's been in my family since the 1940s, back when the stretch of land was just pasture, pine, and the lake my grandfather dug out by hand with his brothers. Henderson Lake, we called it. Still do. It's spring-fed, stocked with bass and bluegill, and until recently so quiet you could hear the water lap from across the pasture. That all changed when the HOA from the new development on the far ridge started expanding. They call it East Ridge Waterside, a gated community of custom homes with strict lawn rules and mandatory flags on porches. One week they were building, the next they were passing bylaws like they owned the land around them. Now, to be fair, I'd heard some talk that they were leasing the edge of the lake for recreational use. I didn't think much of it. There's an old public access point about a half-acre wide on the southern edge that was grandfathered in decades ago. I figured they were fishing there. Didn't bother me. Until I started seeing signs. Private lake. HOA members only. Unauthorized boats will be towed. Fishing club in session. Do not disturb. Then came the calls. Hello, this is Karen Delaney with East Ridge HOA. We've noticed a boat docked near the north shore that isn't registered. Please remove it immediately. I laughed it off until I noticed one of their goons, clipboard in hand, walking my fence line like he was measuring it. Then came the visit. She arrived like a queen inspecting her kingdom. Pearls, khakis, sun visor, and that clipboard again. Said my boat was obstructing HOA view lines. Said I was infringing on communal lake access. Said she'd have it removed. You'll want to be real careful, I told her calmly, about where you think your jurisdiction ends. She narrowed her eyes. Sir, if the boat isn't moved by tomorrow, we'll issue a formal violation notice and call the county. I smiled. Well, good luck with that. She left in a huff, stomping back to her spotless white SUV like she'd just done me a favor. But what Karen didn't realize was that this lake wasn't a shared space. That public access point on the south? That's all they had rights to. The rest, the docks, the shoreline, the deep end where my granddad taught me to fish, that was private land. My land. And the boat? That was just the beginning. By Thursday, the tone had shifted. I came down to the dock to find a bright orange sticker slapped across my boat windshield. Violation notice. Unauthorized vessel. It was signed in thick red ink, Karen D., HOA president. The next morning, a drone hovered over my property for a good 5 minutes. I waved. It zipped off like a startled fly, but not before getting a clear shot of my boat and my posted private property signs. That afternoon, a certified letter arrived from the East Ridge Waterside Legal Committee, threatening legal action if I didn't comply with HOA lake regulations. It was laughable, but now they'd made it personal. Karen and her so-called lake steward started hosting HOA fishing tournaments. Loud events with amplifiers, raffle tables, and coolers full of cheap beer. They parked along my fence, used my dock without asking, and even let kids trample my flower beds. My cattle were spooked. My dog barked for hours. Then someone, probably one of Karen's clipboard squad, snuck onto my property and wrapped yellow HOA caution tape around my boat dock. They left behind a fake citation that read, immediate removal required, violation of community lake etiquette. Lake etiquette? I nearly lost it. The following Sunday, I drove into town. When I got back, the boat was gone. It had been towed by Karen's hired goon, who ran a towing business conveniently contracted by the HOA board. I called the sheriff. Clay, he said, they just towed a boat off private property. That's felony trespassing and grand theft if you want to press charges. You bet I did. The boat was released to me the next day, after I showed the impound lot manager my lake ownership papers. Still, Karen wasn't done. The HOA newsletter called her a community hero who stopped an unauthorized watercraft intruder. She even called the local news, spinning a story about how her neighborhood was under threat from an aggressive landowner refusing to follow community guidelines. I watched the segment, flipping through my grandfather's deed packet like it was a holy book. Then I saw pink flags staked along the lake's west side. HOA expansion survey. They were preparing to build a community dock, right on my land. Karen thought she could manifest ownership through confidence, but every step they took gave me more ammo. So I made a plan. I got notarized deed copies, called up Tim Rayburn, a real estate attorney and bulldog in court. We drafted a cease and desist letter with satellite images, timestamps, and a formal demand. Effective immediately, all East Ridge waterside residents were banned from Henderson Lake. Karen received it during a board meeting. The next day, I installed a new ranch gate, steel, solar locks, and a giant sign that read, "Private Lake, trespassers will be prosecuted, owner, Henderson Ranch." Then I wrote a letter to the local paper. A beloved ranch family under siege by HOA overreach. A peaceful man's legacy lake turned into a battleground. It made the front page. Residents started turning on Karen. One elderly man came by. She told us it was community land. We didn't know. I told him, this isn't about the residents. It's about her. Karen tried to host a lake use vote. Didn't matter. The lake wasn't theirs to vote on. That week, I filed a civil suit for damages and trespassing. Karen was served at an HOA mixer. Poetic. And then came the final blow. Opening day of their annual lake invitational. I let them gather tents, gear, music. Then Tim and 2 deputies rolled in. Flashing lights. Court order in hand. "Ma'am, you're trespassing. This event is illegal." Karen tried to protest. "We voted on this." The deputy cut her off. "That vote's about as binding as a lemonade stand menu." They cleared the dock. I raised my thermos from the porch and toasted her as she stood frozen, humiliated. Within days, Karen resigned. The board dissolved the fishing club. The illegal dock was torn down. The lawsuit settled. I used the payout to restore my grandfather's dock and build a quiet bench under the oak tree. I call it the peace spot. Donnelly and his grandson still fish the public edge sometimes. Just not if Karen's driving the boat, I joke. There's a funny thing about land. When it's yours, it speaks for itself. What would you have done if Karen slapped a violation on your boat? Comment "Justice served" if you made it to the end. And remember, if someone tries to take what's yours with a smile and a rulebook, make sure they can swim.